Hello, and welcome to the fifth video in my series of guides on how to use the coding website Scratch. In this video, I'll be explaining how to use event coding blocks. By now, you probably know how to make a project in Sprite, and if you don't, I recommend you watch the first video, but there's still a lot more to learn about sprites and codings I haven't explained yet. If you've been keeping up with these guides, then you're probably aware of what some coding blocks do and how they work with sprites to help make your project. But you might not be aware of how code blocks are activated without you manually going out of your way to click on them to activate them. That's what event coding blocks are for. They're used for the first code block in the following line of code line and essentially let all of the code blocks in the line of code know when to activate. You don't have to manually activate them yourself, and these are known as hat blocks. They're the only blocks that can start a script. Not all event blocks are hat blocks, but a majority of them are. Now I'll explain how the code blocks work, but this will be different from other sections in my videos where I explain how these work, because the event code blocks don't do anything on their own. So while I'm demonstrating how to use code blocks, I'll also demonstrate an example of it being used with another code block from previous video. When a green flag clicked will activate the line of code whenever the green flag is clicked. The green flag is typically used to indicate when the project starts. So if you want something to happen once the project starts, you should use this code block. For example, I'll make it so when the green flag is clicked, the sprite will play the meow sound effect. When space key pressed will activate the line of code whenever the space bar key is pressed on the user's keyboard. This key can be mapped to any letter or number on your keyboard, as well as change what button needs to be pressed. Here I'll make it so the Scratch Cat moves somewhere random once the spacebar is pressed. When sprite clicked will activate the line of code whenever the sprite that's running it is clicked on. This example will make it say hey whenever the sprite is clicked. When backdrop switched to backdrop 1 will automatically have the line of code whenever the backdrop's costume is swapped to whatever you set it to. Here I'll make the Scratch Cat turn 180 degrees when the backdrop is set to backdrop 1. When loudness greater than 10 will activate the line of code when the volume of your microphone volume reaches louder than whatever you set it to. You have to allow the Scratch website to use your microphone to let this work. You can also change this to when timer greater than 10 to activate the code whenever the timer reaches higher than what you set it to. The timer is mostly invisible and restarts to 0 whenever the flag is clicked. Here I'll make it so after 3 seconds have passed the green flag is clicked the sprite will point towards my mouse pointer. Broadcast message 1 and broadcast message 1 and wait are the only event code blocks that don't activate a line of code and act like a regular code block. How these work is you can create different messages that'll activate blocks of code across all other sprites that have blocks of codes related to that specific message. For example, I'll create a message in this new sprite called slide to random. The name doesn't matter, but setting as the name to remember what it does. Now I'll put a block of code that says when space key pressed, broadcast slide to random. Now I'll code in the first sprite and use the code block when I receive message 1 and turn it into when I receive slide to random. and put in the code block glide 1 second to random position. And that's all for today. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll try my best to respond. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.